What do you think about when you hear one say transfer of wealth or transfer of power? You think about a transfer of power from a king at the death of a king, possibly to a prince, or a princess who becomes a queen. Well, do you think about a city that has kind of gotten ran down, and the wealth or the people with money move to a totally different city, taking their money with them and their spending habits, leaving the city behind to people who do not spend as much money or do not have as much money to spend? Um, when I think about a transfer of wealth, you think about, I mean, there's a lot of talk about now as of the 99% and 1%. Hey, they've got all the money, the 1%, let's get some of that. That's not fair. And Michael Moore and some of these people have some of their good points, but they've gotten a little bit off track. What you've got to look at is the big picture. And it doesn't have anything to do with the wealthy. Uh, the wealthy, the people who lead, sure, there's a lot of corruption there with a lot of people, a lot of these wealthy people. I mean, how many people do you have to step on to become a billionaire? I mean, come on. But the thing is, I'd much rather have intelligent leaders than follow an imbecile. I mean, that's just all it is to it. I hate it. There's corruption with some of them, not all of them, but some of them. But let's get back on subject. Transfer of wealth. Now, when you look at this from the transfer of wealth from, say, let's just say socialism, you're talking about transfer of wealth from a rich person and average that income out and kind of divide it amongst the poor. Okay, now think about this. We've all heard about China and the growth and expansion of China. And my goodness, there are a lot of people living in China. Think about all the people living in China. But there's 300 million people here in our country. I think there's over 1.3 billion people living in China. Now, here's where I'm getting at. Money, for many years now, I mean even decades, 40, 50 years or longer, has been basically leaving America and basically going to China. And, that may be a controversial topic, but let me tell you, it's as easy to understand as me having a dollar bill in my hand and seeing some guy over here who doesn't have a dime, me walking over to him and taking that dollar bill and putting it in his hands, and then me walking away without having a dollar bill. Now, if you can't understand that concept, then, or if you can understand that concept, then you can understand what I'm talking about when I say there is a transfer of wealth going on between our country, not only our country, but any well-to-do country, such as the European Union, who is also in an economic crisis right now. When we give money, when we buy their products, which were created by people who make less income than we do, that our factories cannot compete with, when we buy their products and the majority of that money, or a great percentage of that money, goes to those people, and in turn the demand that we create in our country and the European Union creates in their countries, when we create a demand for their products, they're going to be opening up factories. Now, in our country, we're going to be closing down factories because our people, with the lifestyle that we've been accustomed to living for a very long time, cannot compete. We cannot compete. We can try to automate. We can lay people off and automate. That doesn't create jobs. It may create a few jobs to automate, but that's just temporarily. We can lower people's salaries. We can move our factories into a very low-income area, and I live in a very low-income area, our county, and there has been a few factories that moved here to try to take advantage of people that are out of work, that are willing to work for hardly nothing. All right, we criticize these big companies Sorry, my webcam went out for a second, but we criticize these big companies, or at least the Occupy movement. Some in the Occupy movement are criticizing some of these big industries like GM, automobile manufacturers, all these people, because they're outsourcing some of their jobs overseas and so forth to try to gain extra profits. We criticize them, but yet, why are they having to do that? I say because there's unfair competition, and because we're buying products that are so cheap, our factories are having to compete with those cheap products in order to stay in business. Now, that's not fair for us. And this has been going on for many years, to the point where you can't hardly turn back time. Because if you turn back time and you start putting tariffs on those goods now, they're going to be too expensive for us, because our salaries have been decreased over a period of 40 or 50 years. Our middle class has shrunk. There's not as many people that have money. And now gas prices are so high that a lot of the extra income is just not there. So there is a transfer of wealth from our country to China, and it's been going on for many years. Our factories have been closing down, and those jobs have been supplemented with an ever-increasing growth of government, because no politician wants to ever admit that there are high unemployment numbers on their watch. So what has happened? It's just easy to, it may not even be a conscious thing they're doing. It may be a subconscious, but they say, oh, wow, unemployment numbers aren't looking too good. Let's make FDA a lot bigger. Let's make EPA a lot bigger. We've got this whole big Homeland Security now, which encompasses several other divisions, but also the number of people working there went up. We have all these wars, and we have people in the military, which is great. That's a very good thing. We have to defend ourselves. We have to defend our country's interest in the world. But what I'm saying is that a lot of these jobs are there simply because our private sector has been shrinking for years, and the incomes of those private sector jobs have been decreasing for years. Now, you may not believe me. You may think I'm talking out of, where I've just grabbed this information out of the air. But let me tell you something. A lot of this is just common sense. You've got a country that makes, or was making, only a couple of dollars an hour, years ago. Maybe now they're up to $3 an hour. I'm not sure. Last time I heard, maybe it was around $3. Our minimum wage is, twice that, over twice that. But so technically, it's still unfair, and this is not going to stop until we can compete with them. And it's not just China; they are the biggest one because they do have the most people. We're talking about India, Indonesia, some of these other places that the people are desperate for work. Some of them are very hungry. They're poor. There's factories being built. And those goods are being shipped over here for cheaper than we can even buy the product to make those things. And a lot of our factories have closed down because of that. Now, I'm going to be talking a lot about this. Now, this is a theory of mine. I have not heard it from anywhere else. I cannot understand why. Our government isn't really talking about it. You get a few little political posturing comments about China manipulating their currency. Man, let me tell you, this is just common sense. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand this. This is just common sense. Let's give you this example. You go to Walmart. You got a $15 American-made t-shirt sitting on the shelf. You got a $7 made-in-China t-shirt made on that same shelf. They look identical. You just put $150 worth of gas in your truck on the way to Walmart, okay? You just put a lot of money in your truck in gas and fuel prices. You get there and you look, wow, I need a t-shirt. $15, dang, wow. I'm not going to buy that one. $8, yes, I'm going to buy that one. You buy that t-shirt. That t-shirt represents jobs, not in this country, in China. Now, Consequently, it also represents jobs in this country. And let me tell you why. Because that $15 t-shirt over there, there is a factory somewhere in the United States that made that t-shirt. And you know, if they don't sell that t-shirt and other t-shirts just like it, somebody's going to get laid off. They're either going to get laid off or their salary is going to be decreased to where they can manufacture that t-shirt for $8 and sell it at Walmart. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now, there's a lot of, I'm not going to say false advertising, there's a lot of false propaganda. That would be the word I'm saying. Now, people just don't think about things anymore like they used to, I don't believe. I just don't think people really think things through anymore, and they don't understand that political policies, once in place, can have effects either in a positive direction or a negative direction that you may not even see for years down the road when that guy that voted for that policy or that law, he may be on his deathbed. He may have been out of politics for 15 or 20 years. But still, the policies, those things are either going to have a negative or a positive impact. But back to that t-shirt thing. That $15 t-shirt represents American jobs that are going to be lost if they can't compete against that $8 t-shirt. It either represents jobs that are going to be lost or they're going to have to take a pay cut. And this is going to be a gradual process that is going to happen. There might be 10 t-shirt factories open up in China next month. There might be one open up over here in the States. But if it's going to open up and if it's going to compete, it's got to be cheaper. The prices have got to be cheaper. And there's only just a few ways to do that. You either automate, which you delete jobs. You have your employees making less money and you work the heck out of them. Don't let them take breaks, which is against the law, all these sort of things. But see, they don't have that kind of stuff over in China. So they don't have EPA, okay? They don't have OSHA. They don't have some of these other groups that are putting all these regulations down their throats, and fining them and making sure they do all these things. They don't have that, see. But we do, because our private sector is shrinking, and the people that work for EPA and OSHA have got to have something to account for their job. And, and that's what it amounts to. And it's really a messed up system. It just doesn't make common sense. I'm not saying that I'm not an environmentalist or that I think that we should just keep beating up our environment. I'm just saying that that is a side effect. And actually, we could be hurting our environment. And let me tell you why. Because by having EPA and having OSHA breathing down everybody's necks, we're putting American factories out of business. And American factories probably have more people regulating them than China does. So every time a factory closes down here and a factory opens up in China who doesn't have these regulations, they're putting out, God, it could be 3 times the pollution that we're putting out. You see what I'm saying? That is my point, and it's really just common sense. It's a theory, yes, but think about it. If a factory closes down here that's under strict regulations, and a factory opens up in China because our factory closed down, they don't have the regulations. They're going to put more into our atmosphere. So for environmental purposes, one could say that we're actually doing the world harm by killing our private sector. Now, I don't want to get too far out and off my subject matter, but basically that's what I'm saying here. And for right now, it's getting late and I'm going to sign off, and we'll be talking about this more later. If you have any comments, please feel free to comment. I'd love to hear from it. But the most common comment that tries to contradict what I'm saying here is someone says, my goodness, there's 1.3 billion people who live in China. Wow, can you only imagine them people buying our products? Boy, we could just have factories all over the place. In the long run, down the road, this could all work out. We'll just be wealthy over here in America because we got this little fair trade agreement with our world trade agreements going with China, and we're bringing all this stuff over. One day, they're going to just be buying just 5 times the stuff we have because our population is only 300,000. Theirs is 1.3. They'll be buying 4 or 5 times. Let me tell you something. That does not even make sense. For one thing, it's complete bull. There's no way that they're going to be buying our product.